Hello, this is P. Andrew Sandlin, founder and president of the Center for Cultural Leadership. My talk today is titled The Dangers of Pilgrim Theology. Perhaps the most popular Christian book in English, apart from the Bible itself, is Pilgrim's Progress, an extended allegory written by the great Baptist John Bunyan. It's a story of a young man, appropriately named Christian, who by God's grace loses his burden and is pressed by God's grace throughout this world, through its sin and temptations, toils and snares, until he crosses the great river of death and gets to the celestial city. And it's a remarkable and poignant and in many ways very biblical account of what the Christian life is all about. Unfortunately, that word in the title, pilgrim, can be a little misleading, just as aspects of the allegory itself, of the book itself, can be misleading. Part of the problem is our misunderstanding of that word pilgrim as used in the Bible in English and related to words aliens and strangers and so on. In Hebrews chapter 11, for example, we read of Abraham and the patriarchs as being strangers, pilgrims, aliens, looking for a heavenly city that has foundations, whose builder and maker is God. And immediately we're conditioned to think, when it says heavenly city, of perhaps the intermediate state, or a Platonic notion of a world far, far away, a non-material world, this world having been completely burned up and destroyed, and living forever with the Lord, perhaps in disembodied spirits, but eventually getting a body back, though perhaps we don't know why. That essentially is Platonic, or Plato's and ancient Greek dualism, as it has been imported into the Christian faith, even though it's been pervasively received. When the Bible uses the term pilgrim, and similar terms like alien or strangers, it means those who are accompanying temporarily with people who are not of their family, people from a different nation. When the Bible speaks of Abraham, for example, Isaac and Jacob and so on as pilgrims, it does not mean, emphatically, that they are pilgrims in God's good created earth and are looking only to escape this earth to go to heaven when they die. It does mean, however, that they are pilgrims within this world being interpreted and understood as the satanic system, presently governed by evil. That's how John, the Apostle John in the New Testament, often uses that word, both in the Gospel and in his epistles. When he says, do not love the world, the cosmos, he doesn't mean don't love the material world. I mean, after all, God said it was very good. God loves his own world. It doesn't mean the people within the world. After all, we read in John 3:16, for God so loved the world. That means the people within the world, and probably also implies his creation. When John says do not love the world, he means the present system. World is interpreted as the present evil system under satanic influence. It is that world in which we are strangers and pilgrims and aliens, not God's world. So then, to maybe bring it down a little bit, we are called not to be at home in the sinful world, the world of unbelief, the world of rebellion, the world of sexual deviation and perversion, the world of pride, the world of prayerlessness, the world of hatred for one another, the world of abortion and pornography, and I could go on and on. That world, of course, is the world in which we are called to be strangers, pilgrims, and aliens. But we are to be at home and not to be strangers in God's world of creation and his kingdom that has invaded this world in Jesus Christ. It's for this reason that pilgrim theology, a pilgrimage, as it is usually understood among Christians, is so dangerous. Because if we embrace that view, we get the idea that God is not especially interested in human history. He's not interested in redeeming this world and creation, despite the fact that Paul plainly says that the creation itself is moaning, travailing for its own redemption. It was not cursed because of anything it did, that is the non-human creation, but of course Adam and Eve who sinned, and we born into this created world who continue sinning. But thank God, because of Christ's death on the cross and his glorious resurrection and his ascension and his session, present session and reign, little by little this world is being redeemed. It was definitively redeemed at the cross and resurrection, but it's being progressively redeemed now by the preaching of the gospel and the power of the Spirit and the people of God under the triune God's authority as they obey. But if we see the real evil as the materiality of the present world, if we see the real evil as food and politics and sex and art and education, and if we think that these things are at best distractions from the very important things, like simply thinking high thoughts, internal thoughts about God, with no reference to the material world, we've embraced a dangerous form of pilgrim theology. Our pilgrimage as the people of God is the pilgrimage away from the sinful world and more fully into God's created world and a restoration of that created and good material world. One reason we know that's the case is because of the end of Revelation, when we read about the inception of the consummate state, the eternal state. It's not depicted as our dying and going to heaven. It's depicted as heaven, which is the temporary abode of God. Remember, heaven's not eternal. Was not eternal in the past. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The heavens were just the leading heaven, the top heaven was just a place for God to dwell, to relate to the earth. But in Revelation, we read that these heavens come down and merge with the earth, a newly renovated earth. In the book of Peter, it's a burned up earth, not burned up to be destroyed, but purged. It's likely that that passage is actually specifically referring to God's judgment in AD 70, if you look at the passage of the Old Testament. But we could also add that this resurrected earth is also burned in the sense that it has been purged of evil. So that is the earth, the world, and the heavens, the new heavens and the new earth that everything is pointing toward. And it'll be very tactile. It'll be very fleshy. God has made us not to be disembodied, but to be bodied beings. And we are less than beings, full beings, if we're disembodied. For this reason, I want to encourage you as I close, not to look at this created world as a world you're just passing through, because your treasures are laid up somewhere beyond the blue. Our final treasures are laid up in the consummate eternal state, but that will be here on a renovated earth, and we will bring our cultural work, our faithfulness to the Lord, and godly art and godly education and godly politics, more importantly, godly families, godly churches, into this eternal state. So beware of pilgrim theology. This is the Lord's world. The earth is the Lord's and all of its fullness, and he's extending his kingdom in it. I'm P. Andrew Sandlin, founder and president of the Center for Cultural Leadership, ChristianCulture.com.